Have you ever felt the shattering impact of an unexpected turn, where everything you've built, every path you've carefully chosen, suddenly disappears? For Lieutenant Commander Elise Reeves, a dedicated officer at the pinnacle of her career, that moment arrived without warning. One day she was amidst the familiar thrum of her carrier, her expertise in underwater acoustics protecting the fleet. The next, she found herself adrift, literally and figuratively, in the vast Pacific, her reputation shattered by silent accusations and averted gazes. But sometimes when life casts you into the unknown, it's not an abandonment, but an invitation to a purpose deeper than you could ever conceive. This is the story of a hidden war, fought by unsung heroes who vanish from their lives, embracing isolation and secrecy, all to safeguard a world that will never know their sacrifice. It's a testament to resilience, the profound weight of duty, and the extraordinary individuals who choose to walk a path of unseen courage. The Marines arrived without warning, no knock, no announcement, just the quiet shuffle of boots and the cold presence of authority at Lieutenant Commander Elise Reeves' workstation. There were no explanations offered, no charges read aloud, only the silent gesture to follow. As they escorted her through the narrow corridors of the USS Nimitz, the shift in atmosphere was immediate. Sailors who once greeted her with nods or friendly remarks now found urgent reasons to study bulkhead wiring or immerse themselves in phantom tasks. She could feel their avoidance like a cold wind against her skin. Her career, built with precision and purpose, was unraveling in silence and sidelong glances. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes. It had all blurred, and now she was adrift in open ocean, alone and stunned. Her mind reeled as she tried to process the sudden turn her life had taken. That's when she saw it, something rising from the depths where nothing should be. The surface rippled unnaturally, and then a shape emerged, sleek, black, and unmarked. A submarine, silent and ghost-like, breached with eerie grace. No flag, no numbers, no insignia. It came for her, and only her. Just that morning, the world had felt so different. The first golden fingers of sunlight had stretched across the flight deck of the USS Nimitz, warming its steel frame with hues of amber and molten gold. Elise had stood near the edge, her gloved hands gripping the cold railing, watching as FA-18 Super Hornets roared down the catapults and burst into the sky. The powerful vibrations of launch reverberated through the deck and into her bones, a familiar rhythm after 8 years aboard. That rumble was more than noise. It was home. The ocean had unfolded endlessly around her, a deep and constant blue that had defined her adult life. She drew a long breath, inhaling the sharp sting of jet fuel, the salt tang of seawater, and something more elusive, the scent of meaning, a purpose she'd chased since Annapolis. Far below, the carrier sliced cleanly through the Pacific, its white wake trailing toward the far edge of the world. Another mission, another day at sea, another step in the life she'd crafted with discipline and sacrifice. "Beautiful morning," said Chief Petty Officer Ramirez, approaching with 2 mugs of coffee steaming in the brisk air. He handed one to her, the heat comforting against her fingers. "Every morning out here is beautiful, Chief," she replied with a faint smile, sipping the bitter brew. He gestured toward the horizon. "How's the new acoustic array holding up?" "Like a dream," she answered, her voice touched with pride. "Your calibration adjustments picked up a whale pod last night that the old system would have missed entirely." She nodded with quiet satisfaction. Her specialty in underwater acoustics had earned her command over the carrier group's submarine detection systems. In a time when enemy submarines moved like shadows, quieter and more elusive than ever, her algorithms had twice succeeded where conventional sonar had failed. It wasn't luck, it was skill. It was hers. Then the intercom crackled, sharp and sudden, cutting through their conversation. "Lieutenant Commander Reeves, report to the captain's quarters immediately." The tone of the voice made her stomach twist. It wasn't the usual formality. There was an edge, too flat, too abrupt. "Duty calls," she said, handing the coffee back to Ramirez. He took it, but something in his face shifted. His usual ease was gone, replaced by a guarded stillness. "Good luck, Commander." She paused, taken aback. It was a strange thing to say. Not see you later, not catch you at the next briefing. Just good luck. But there was no time to dwell on it. Her boots moved before her thoughts could catch up. She moved swiftly through the carrier's tight corridors, weaving through familiar turns. But something was off, subtle but undeniable. Sailors avoided her gaze. Some turned abruptly, others stared a little too long before pretending to focus elsewhere. Jokes and greetings died on tongues. The silence was louder than the engines. Something was wrong. When she arrived at the captain's quarters, the Marine posted outside didn't ask for her name or request permission to enter. He gave her a curt nod, looked her in the eyes for half a second, then opened the door without a word. Protocol ignored. Another red flag. Inside, Captain Harmon sat behind his desk, his face a mask of unreadable calm. He didn't rise to greet her. He didn't meet her eyes. Instead, two men stood flanking his desk, civilians, at least on paper. But everything about them, posture, expression, regulation haircuts, screamed naval intelligence. "Sir," she said sharply, saluting, "Lieutenant Commander Reeves, reporting as ordered." The captain finally looked up. "At ease, Commander." His voice held no warmth. Then came the words that would sever her from everything she'd built. "Effective immediately, you are relieved of duty aboard this vessel." The statement landed like a blow to the chest, her vision blurred, not from tears, but from disbelief. "Sir," her voice held steady, but it was a struggle. "May I ask, on what grounds?" The taller of the two intelligence officers stepped forward. "That information is classified," he said, tone emotionless. He slid a folder across the desk toward her. "These are your transfer orders. Your personal effects have been packed." She stared at the folder but didn't reach for it. "My team, my project, has been reassigned," the captain interrupted, his tone final. His eyes never softened. "This matter is non-negotiable and non-discussable." She stood frozen, 1,000 protests caught in her throat. But the rules were clear. Orders like these didn't come from her captain. They came from much higher. And now, without ceremony or reason, the life she'd dedicated herself to, mission after mission, sacrifice after sacrifice, was being stripped away, and no one would say why. The second intelligence officer's words cut through the air like ice. "You deserve nothing, Commander." Elise's breath caught in her throat, but she didn't respond. Captain Harmon flinched, just barely, but didn't say a word. Whatever was happening had been sanctioned far above his authority, and there was no changing it now. "You have 20 minutes to collect your things and report to the lower deck for departure," the taller officer continued. "Departure to where?" Elise asked, trying to keep her voice steady. She hated the tremble she felt rising in her chest, the heat behind her eyes. She wasn't ready to let them see her crack. "Your orders are in the folder." Before Elise could speak again, two Marines appeared outside the captain's door. They weren't there to arrest her. Their posture was formal, flanking, not aggressive, but their presence made one thing brutally clear. She was being escorted out. She turned toward the captain, bypassing the intelligence officers entirely. "Sir," she asked, "have I done something wrong?" For the briefest of moments, something shifted in Captain Harmon's expression. Regret, maybe, or guilt. But it vanished so quickly she wasn't sure she'd really seen it. "Follow your orders, Commander," that's all I could say. The words stung more than she expected. Her dismissal couldn't have been more direct. Elise took the folder without looking at it and tucked it beneath her arm. She straightened her spine, forced her face into something close to calm, and turned to leave. The two Marines moved in beside her, silent and stone-faced. Her boots echoed sharply against the metal floor as they made their way through the carrier. The halls that had once felt like home now felt foreign, hostile. People who had greeted her with warmth and humor only yesterday now couldn't meet her eyes. Crew members looked suddenly fascinated with the floor. Junior officers who had once eagerly sought her counsel turned into side passages without a word. As they passed the Combat Information Center, she caught a glimpse through the glass. Her acoustic analysis team was clustered around the monitors, but none of them looked up. All except Petty Officer Chen. His eyes were red, rimmed with exhaustion or maybe tears. He pressed one hand to the glass as she passed. Elise slowed, meeting his gaze. Then Lieutenant Hayes stepped in, gently pulling Chen away. Further down the corridor, Commander Jackson, her executive officer, her friend, Her comrade through fire drills and diplomatic standoffs in a nightmarish typhoon emerged from a briefing room. Their eyes met across the distance. He gave her a tiny, almost imperceptible nod, then turned and walked away without a word. It felt like a farewell wrapped in acknowledgement, but it told her nothing. "Your quarters, Commander," one of the Marines said unnecessarily as they reached her door. Inside, her room had been stripped of the life she'd built there. Every personal belonging, books, photographs, keepsakes, had been packed with almost surgical precision into a single duffel bag now sitting on her bare bunk. Her uniforms hung like hollow shells in the open closet. The space felt ghosted, abandoned, like she was already gone. The folder in her arms suddenly felt heavier. She sat and opened it, hoping, desperately, for some kind of clarity. Inside was a single sheet. Assignment, temporary transport to Naval Station, Pearl Harbor. Await further orders, immediate effect. That was it. No reason, no explanation, no context. It wasn't a standard transfer. She knew that. It was too sudden, too secretive, too quiet. She changed quickly into civilian clothes. Her hands shook slightly as she removed her service ribbons and officer insignia, folding them gently and tucking them into a side pocket of the duffel. Then she zipped it shut and stepped back into the corridor where the Marines waited. Neither one looked at her. "I'm ready," she said simply. The journey to the lower deck was silent, and the space felt colder than usual. The hum of the ship's systems dull in her ears. At the lowest deck, a small motorboat rocked gently in the water beside the platform. There was no ceremony, no farewell, not even a cursory reading of orders. Nothing. For someone of her rank, a formal send-off would have been expected, if not required. But here, now, there was only silence. A Marine handed her the duffel. "Your belongings." Then unexpectedly, Captain Harmon appeared. Elise blinked in surprise. His presence was unusual, borderline improper under the circumstances. But he was here. That had to mean something. He handed her a plain envelope. "Open this when you are 10 miles out, not before." Her hand closed around it. Questions surged inside her like a rising tide. Why, who ordered this? What is really going on? But discipline, hammered into her over years of service, kept her mouth shut. "Good luck, Commander," the captain said, so softly she almost didn't catch it. The motorboat operator offered a hand to help her aboard. She climbed in wordlessly. A second later, the boat pulled away from the massive hull of the carrier that had been her home, her post, her pride. No salutes, no waves, no acknowledgement from the few deckhands visible above. Just the wind in her face and the churning sea behind them. Elise sat alone in the stern of the boat, gripping her duffel in one hand and the envelope in the other. As the carrier faded behind her, shrinking on the horizon, she kept her gaze locked on it, searching for something she could not name and wasn't sure she would find. For a moment, nothing else happens. Elise holds her breath. Her hands are clenched, white around the boat's edge, every muscle taut. The ocean is calm again, deceptively still, as if holding its breath with her. Then a figure appears, climbing up and out through the hatch. Whoever it is wears a dark, seamless uniform that catches the sunlight in a strange, almost iridescent way. Not quite Navy issue, but close enough to cause unease. The figure lifts a hand and waves slowly, deliberately, before gesturing for her to approach. Elise hesitates. Every instinct in her tells her this is no ordinary operation. Her pulse pounds in her ears, and 1,000 thoughts scream for attention. Still, she finds her hands moving to the throttle. The small boat hums forward, cutting across the shimmering water. As she draws closer, the scale of the submarine becomes even more intimidating. It dwarfs her craft, sleek and silent like a creature from deep time, born from the trenches of the sea. When she pulls alongside, a ladder is lowered down the side of the hull. The figure descends a few rungs and waits, watching. Elise cuts the engine. For a few seconds, she just sits, staring up, the envelope still in her pocket like a weight of unanswered questions. Then she stands, steps carefully from her boat onto the narrow ladder, and begins the climb. The metal rungs are hot from the sun. Her palms sweat. Her breath catches with each motion. The moment she reaches the top, the figure offers a hand, gloved, steady. She takes it without a word. Up close, she notices the insignia, a symbol she doesn't recognize, a sharp angular design etched in black and silver. "This way, Commander Reeves," the figure says. The voice is calm, modulated, feminine maybe, not entirely robotic, but with a clipped precision that suggests it might not be fully human either. The hatch seals shut behind them, shutting out the light and the salt air. Inside, the sub is dark at first, cool and dimly lit with strips of soft blue illumination running along the corridor edges. Elise follows in silence, her footsteps echoing down the narrow passageway. Doors slide open before them, as if anticipating their movement. No crew passes them, no idle chatter, no engine noise. The hum beneath her feet feels different, quieter, smoother, advanced. She's led into a small room. No windows. A single table, 2 chairs. A screen built into the wall flickers to life. The figure nods once, then steps back, allowing Elise to take a seat. She does. The screen resolves into a live feed. A face appears, older, male, eyes sharp beneath a furrowed brow. Not a superior, she knows. No insignia. "Commander Elise Reeves," the man says. "You've been brought here because of what you found 3 months ago. We told you to forget it, to let it go, but what you found wasn't supposed to exist." Elise feels her spine straighten involuntarily. She says nothing. Her throat is dry. "That acoustic anomaly," he continues, "wasn't natural. And it wasn't just a stray vessel. You picked up something we've been tracking for years. Something we don't fully understand yet. Something very old. Very deep." A long pause stretches between them. And now it's waking up. The figure steps into view atop the submarine, tall and commanding. He lifts a pair of binoculars and peers straight at Elise. After a brief moment of study, he lowers them and gives her a deliberate wave, signaling her forward. Elise freezes, instincts sharpened by years of training, screaming that this deviates from any standard protocol. But the sealed envelope from her captain, unmistakably deliberate, had pointed her here. And now she found herself adrift in every possible sense of the word. Professionally cut loose, personally isolated. She starts the engine and moves toward the looming vessel, her posture tense, every motion measured. As she draws near, the blur of distance fades, revealing more of the man waiting on the conning tower. Mid-50s, by the look of him. Weathered face lined by years at sea, dark hair streaked with gray, eyes alert. His uniform is unmistakably naval in cut, but stripped of all identifying insignia. Only the bars of a captain remain. The moment she enters shouting distance, his voice carries across the water with calm authority. "Commander Reeves," he calls. "I'm Captain Marcus Harlow. Welcome to the USS Phantom." Elise eases off the throttle and lets her boat coast closer, her mind already sorting through memory, combing the naval registry for anything matching Phantom. She finds nothing. Her answer is immediate, automatic. "There's no USS Phantom in the fleet," she replies. A smile curves across his face. Even from a distance, it's clear, measured, knowing. "Exactly. And that's only the beginning of what doesn't officially exist out here." He gestures to a hatch on the deck. "If you'll come aboard, Commander Reeves, we have a great deal to talk about." She doesn't move. Not yet. Suspicion wars with curiosity. Alone in the vast Pacific, she's being invited aboard a black-hulled submarine that, according to all official records, doesn't exist. Madness, recklessness, but the precise, almost theatrical way she'd been removed from the Nimitz, the letter, the orders, the abrupt transfer, all of it pointed to a premeditated strategy, a larger plan, and she was clearly a piece of it. "Is this a U.S. Navy vessel?" she calls back, voice sharp with demand. "It is," Harlow confirms, "though you won't find it listed in any public registry. Please, Commander. Time is a resource we can't afford to waste." She draws her boat alongside the massive black hull. 2 crewmen materialize on the deck, both in uniform. Like Harlow, theirs also lack insignia or nameplates, but their posture and precision leave no doubt. Military through and through. One of them secures her craft while the other takes her duffel. "Your belongings will be brought aboard," he says simply. Elise steps onto the deck. It's cool and solid under her boots. Tangible. Real. not some mirage conjured by sun or exhaustion. As Harlow guides her toward the open hatch of the conning tower, she studies the submarine's exterior more closely. The hull bristles with technology she's only seen referenced in speculative white papers. Sound-dampening panels, a propulsion system that hints at cutting-edge engineering, and a sonar array unlike any class she's ever known. This wasn't just a submarine, this was something new, something secret. "This way," Harlow says, already disappearing down the ladder. Elise follows him below deck, boots clanging softly against the rungs. The interior surprises her immediately. Wider passageways than standard, lit in a softer, more efficient glow. And as they move deeper, the surprises multiply. Control systems decades ahead of current models, unfamiliar configurations, in material finishes that suggest advanced composites or alloys. Much of it is beyond her training. Not quite alien, but not standard Navy either. "How long has this sub been operational?" she asks, keeping pace with Harlow's brisk steps. "That's classified," he answers without looking back. "Same as almost everything else about this vessel." They pass crew along the way, each one saluting Harlow with crisp deference. Their eyes linger on Elise, studying her, some of them with unmistakable recognition. They know who she is. Even if she has no idea who they are, they've clearly been briefed about her. Harlow brings her into a space that might be the command center, only it's unlike any combat information center she's ever stepped into. It's spacious, cleanly designed, and fitted with an array of advanced display panels and workstations positioned for both ergonomic use and seamless collaboration. It feels less like a war room and more like a brainstem, central, alive, and capable of tremendous processing. "Welcome to the heart of the Phantom," Harlow announces, gesturing around. "The most advanced submarine in the U.S. Navy, or any Navy for that matter." A familiar figure detaches from one of the workstations and walks toward them. Elise blinks. For a second, she thinks her mind is playing tricks on her. But no, there she is, Lieutenant Kim, Elise's old roommate from the Naval Academy, the same woman who, according to every source Elise trusted, had gone on maternity leave over a year ago. "Kim?" Elise says, stunned. "What? What are you doing here?" Kim offers a familiar half-smile that carries both reassurance and unspoken history. "The same thing you are, Elise," she replies, "following orders that don't make sense until suddenly they do." Before Elise can say another word, "You don't have to say yes, but if you walk away, you'll be leaving behind something that only you are uniquely equipped to understand. That's the part you're going to have to live with." Elise kept her hand resting on the console, eyes fixed on the tangle of data streams glowing across the surface, the low pulse of sonar waves flowing beneath her fingertips. She didn't say anything right away, didn't need to. Every part of her was already recalibrating, mind, instinct, even breath. As if some deeper part of her had known this was coming, had felt the ripples long before the shockwave hit. She looked up at Harlow. "And if I say yes? Then we begin immediately," he said, voice steady but softer now, more like a partner than a superior. "You'll be brought into full operational confidence, and your rank will be reinstated, though unofficially. From this point on, you'll be part of something few people know exists." Kim added, "This compartment will be your domain. You'll have the full support of our engineering and analysis teams. You'll be interfacing directly with live tracking data. Your algorithms, your instincts, are the most precise tool we have." Elise nodded slowly, a storm still raging just behind her calm expression. 3 months ago, she'd been made to feel like a liability. Now she was being told she was their best asset. The whiplash wasn't lost on her, but neither was the truth behind the words. "These drones," she said, turning back toward the screen, "they're testing our limits. They're learning." Harlow didn't disagree, "And we intend to learn faster." "Does anyone else outside this command know what they're capable of?" "Not in full," Kim said. "Not yet. Most assume they're just new variations on known tech. Experimental, high budget, low impact. But they're wrong. These are strategic weapons in reconnaissance form, and they're just the first wave." Elise exhaled through her nose, watching as a new blip emerged on the map. Tiny, cold, deliberate. It wasn't just surveillance anymore. It was rehearsal. They've already crossed one red line, she said. What happens when they cross the next? That's what we were here to prevent, Harlow answered. But we can't do it alone. She looked at both of them now, her decisions settling into place like a final puzzle piece. Not because they had convinced her, not because she felt obligated, but because deep down in that still place all trained officers eventually develop, she understood. This wasn't about career or vindication. It was about threat, real, sophisticated, and advancing. I'll do it, she said, but I want full access to the raw sonar logs, all of them, no redactions. Harlow gave a brief nod. You'll have it. And I work my own hours, no interruptions during active pattern analysis. Agreed, Kim said without hesitation. And I want a direct line to command, no filters. If I detect something, it gets reported immediately. You'll get that too, Harlow said. You're not here to be managed. You're here to lead. She stepped fully into the room now, letting the door slide shut behind her. The hum of the phantom systems enveloped her, a subtle, constant rhythm, like the heartbeat of something vast and hidden. Elise sat down at the central console, fingers already flying across the controls, pulling up backlogs, calibrating sensitivity thresholds, layering spectrographic profiles. The familiar dance of analysis returned to her effortlessly. Behind her, Kim and Harlow exchanged a glance but said nothing. They didn't need to. The decision had been made. The operation had begun. And somewhere deep in the cold dark of the Pacific, something listened. Career, not hinder it. Elise studies his face, searching for any hint of deception. She finds none, only the unwavering conviction of someone who believes in the mission. She exhales, her decision finally crystallizing into words. Then I'm in, she says quietly, but with unmistakable resolve. Harlow gives a small, approving nod, his expression unreadable, but somehow relieved. Welcome aboard the Phantom, Commander. The door closes behind him, leaving Elise once more alone in the hushed hum of the acoustic lab. The lights overhead cast a cold glow over the sleek consoles and monitors. She looks around, not with the uncertainty of before, but with a growing sense of purpose. This was no longer just a detour. It was the start of something deeper, darker, and far more consequential than she had ever anticipated. As the sub prepares to descend, the familiar sensation of pressure change starts to tingle in her ears. A mechanical voice announces their dive in calm, sterile tones. Elise takes a seat at the console, placing her hands on the controls. The unfamiliar equipment now feels like an extension of her own body. She already knows she'll be spending long hours here, combing through sound signatures, tweaking algorithms, and listening for threats that exist beyond ordinary hearing. She thinks again about her team on the Nimitz, how confused and maybe betrayed they must feel. She imagines them trying to piece together why she was abruptly reassigned with no explanation. Then her thoughts drift to her parents, living a quiet life back in Michigan. Would they worry when weeks passed without a word? Would they trust that their daughter was doing something important, something worthy of the silence? It didn't matter now. That life, at least for the next 6 months, was on hold. In its place was this vessel, this mission, and the shared burden of secrecy carried by every soul aboard the Phantom. Hours later, in the stillness of the sub's midnight watch, Elise leans back in her chair, her eyes scanning a slowly evolving waveform across the monitor. Each ripple, each pulse could mean nothing, or it could mean the presence of something hidden beneath the waves, something watching, something waiting. She doesn't flinch from the thought. Instead, she leans closer, narrowing her eyes, listening. She draws a slow, steady breath, the kind that anchors a decision you can't walk back from. Her mind is made up. Then let my boat be scuttled, she says quietly, almost reverently. I'm staying. For a fleeting moment, relief softens Harlow's face, like a crack in a stone wall, before the mask of military professionalism slips back into place. Welcome aboard, Commander Reeves, he says. Then with crisp authority, he turns to the dive officer. Take us down to operating depth. His voice echoes through the submarine's intercom system, followed by the familiar mechanical chorus, dive, dive, dive. Elise braces herself against the slight pitch of the deck as the submarine begins its descent. Through the forward viewport, she watches the light above melt away, swallowed inch by the deepening blue. The sea, vast and shadowed, folds around them. This is her new world now, a realm where silence reigns and every sound carries meaning. Beneath these crushing depths, where sunlight doesn't reach, acoustic signatures become stories, some ordinary, some unspeakable, that the human eye can never see. You can report to your station whenever you're ready, Harlow tells her before stepping away. The mission brief begins in the conference room at 1900. As he disappears into the corridor, Kim approaches. In her hand, she holds a small insignia, a submarine qualification pin. The familiar dolphins of the Navy, but not quite. Their design has been subtly altered. Thought you might want these, Kim says, her voice quiet but knowing. They're the phantom version. Elise takes the pin and rolls it between her fingers, running her thumb over the redesigned curves. They look almost like the real thing. Almost. There's meaning in that small difference. How many of us are there, Elise asks. People like us. People who disappeared from their posts to serve here. Kim doesn't hesitate. Enough to matter, she answers. Each of us got picked because we saw something no one else did, built something no one else could, or had skills too rare to replace. She pauses, gaze steady, and no one talks about the people who vanish. They talk, Kim replies with a subtle, amused tilt of her lips. But what can they prove? Officers get transferred all the time. Some of those transfers come with questions. No one ever gets answers. Around them, the sub continues its descent, every system humming with clean mechanical precision. The deeper they go, the more Elise can hear, the layered sounds of the ocean pressing against the hull. To most ears, it's meaningless noise. To her, it's a language. She spent years learning to understand the whispers of the deep. I should get ready for the briefing, she says, turning slightly. Kim hesitates. One more thing. The crew here, it's not like what you're used to topside. We're different. We've all been pulled out of our normal lives for this, cut off from everything we knew. It creates a kind of bond. Elise nods. I understand. Do you? Kim studies her face, her expression suddenly serious. Because once we reach operational depth, there's no turning back. Not for months. No contact. No second chances. Elise's thoughts flicker to the image of the carrier growing smaller behind her, to the life she left behind, whether for now or forever, she can't say. I understand better than you think, she says at last. Some missions require sacrifices that no one else will ever understand. I accepted that the day I took the oath. Kim seems satisfied with the answer. Then I'll see you at the briefing. When Kim leaves, Elise turns back to the acoustic console. Her fingers glide over the advanced interface, reacquainting herself with the system's complex capabilities. Despite the secrecy, despite the abrupt transition, she feels a growing certainty settle in her chest. This is where she belongs. Here, in the depths, hunting ghosts that no one wants to believe in, aboard a vessel that officially doesn't exist. Her skills have weight here. Consequences. In this submerged world, where national security hinges on what most people can't even comprehend, she is not just useful. She is essential. The Phantom continues its silent descent, taking its elite crew deeper into the black unknown. Here, recognition and rules are shadows. Here, the mission is everything. For Elise Reeves, the journey is only beginning. The briefing room aboard the USS Phantom is like nothing Elise has ever encountered. The walls glow with advanced digital displays showing layers of oceanographic data, thermal gradients, and intricate acoustic profiles of the Pacific territory they've been assigned to patrol. At the center stands a table, sleek, circular, and ringed with consoles, that projects holographic tactical maps in three-dimensional clarity. Officers and specialists gather quietly, efficiently, around the display, reviewing intel and preparing for what's ahead. The atmosphere hums with restrained energy. Captain Harlow stands at the head of the table, expression unreadable, waiting for the room to settle. As Elise steps in, she scans the faces around her. Most are unfamiliar, shadows of other lives and assignments. But she spots a few she knows. Kim among them, a quiet anchor in a sea of unknowns. Lieutenant Rivera, along with a few others Elise had briefly encountered since boarding, were the only familiar faces in the room. The rest remained strangers, but all of them wore the same custom-modified submarine insignia that Lieutenant Kim had handed her earlier. Now that Commander Reeves has joined us, we can begin, Harlow announced. For those who haven't met her yet, Commander Reeves is our newly assigned acoustic specialist, recently transferred from the USS Nimitz. She's the one whose algorithm made the initial detection of the UUVs we're currently tracking. There were nods around the table. Some were polite acknowledgments, others a bit more measured, assessing. Harlow continued the introductions, turning to Elise. Commander, this is our senior team, Lieutenant Commander Park, Executive Officer. Lieutenant Kim, our Tactical Officer. Dr. Weiss, Civilian Technical Advisor from DARPA. Lieutenant Rivera, Sonar Specialist. Lieutenant Ramirez. Chief Peterson, our Chief of the Boat. Elise silently committed each name and face to memory. She watched as Harlow activated the main mission display, the screens flickering to life with maps, data overlays, and acoustic waveforms. 3 months ago, Commander Reeves detected a strange acoustic anomaly near the Mariana Trench, Harlow began. Since then, we've tracked similar patterns throughout the Pacific. These are unmanned underwater vehicles, UUVs, using propulsion systems so advanced they're nearly invisible to conventional sonar. Dr. Weiss, a sharply defined woman in her early 50s with an air of unwavering focus, took over smoothly. We believe these units are part of a covert Chinese deep-sea surveillance initiative. The goal? To identify weaknesses in our underwater defense grid, particularly around Guam and Hawaii. With a tap on her control panel, Dr. Weiss brought up a detailed rendering on the screen. It was a sleek, jet-black underwater drone, roughly 12 feet long. Its smooth surface and minimalist design gave it an almost organic feel. This is our best composite rendering based on limited visuals and acoustic mapping, she said. These UUVs typically operate at depths ranging from 3,000 to 6,000 feet. That's deep enough to avoid detection, but still within range to effectively observe and scan our subsurface infrastructure. What makes them so quiet? Elise asked, narrowing her eyes at the streamlined contours of the drone image. Magnetohydrodynamic propulsion, Dr. Weiss explained, nodding toward the schematic. There are no moving parts on the exterior, no traditional propellers or turbines. They create thrust by passing electrical current through seawater in the presence of a magnetic field. The result is near silent operation with a minimal acoustic signature or wake. Lieutenant Commander Park, a disciplined-looking officer with a rigid posture and a voice that matched his demeanor, added, "We have strong reason to believe these UUVs are being launched from a mothership, most likely a vessel disguised as a civilian research ship operating in international waters." Harlow picked up the thread without pause. Our mission has 3 primary objectives. First, locate and track these drones consistently to build a behavioral pattern. Second, collect conclusive data on their functionality and purpose. Third, if given the green light, intercept and disable a few of them so we can retrieve their components for analysis. He turned to Elise with a seriousness that wasn't lost on her. This is where your work becomes critical, Commander. Your acoustic detection algorithm saw something when everything else failed. We need you to refine it further. Develop it to the point where it can distinguish between individual units, and ideally, help us identify weaknesses we can exploit. Elise turned her attention to the array of data now streaming across the multi-display interface. Signal profiles, waveform snapshots, sonar returns, frequency logs. I'll need full access to every bit of raw acoustic data you've collected so far, she said without looking away. Already uploaded to your terminal, Lieutenant Rivera confirmed from across the table. We've also included comparison data sets from known underwater vehicle types to help calibrate your models. Captain Harlow concluded the formal portion of the briefing, assigning operational roles and watch rotations. As the team began to disperse, he caught Elise's attention with a subtle motion and asked her to stay behind. When the room had emptied and the door sealed, he lowered his voice, the formality slipping away. There's something you need to be aware of, Commander. The Pentagon isn't exactly unified in its view of this mission. Some in the intelligence community don't consider these drones a legitimate threat. A few believe they're part of a scientific research effort, nothing more. That puts us in an awkward position. This operation technically has approval, but it's operating in a very gray zone. Quiet authorization. No fanfare. No backup if something goes sideways. So if anything goes wrong out there, Elise said evenly, we're on our own. Exactly. The Phantom Project has powerful champions, but also very vocal critics. If we're going to justify this mission's existence, our findings need to be unshakable, irrefutable. Elise felt the weight of the words settle in. Now she understood the layers of secrecy, not just operational, but political. Every piece of data they gathered had to hold up against scrutiny. The stakes were higher than she'd realized. Understood, Captain. I'll make sure my analysis leaves no room for doubt. For several weeks, Elise completely immerses herself in the rhythm of life aboard the Phantom. The submarine operates unlike any traditional naval vessel she's known. It moves constantly, never lingering in one place, and refuses to follow any predictable trajectory. The entire crew adheres to an intense level of acoustic discipline, every sound, every movement, controlled and calculated to maintain stealth. The atmosphere is tense, focused, and exacting. The acoustic lab becomes Elise's world. She spends countless hours poring over spectral data, her eyes growing accustomed to spotting the slightest anomalies in the constant drone of underwater noise. She refines algorithms, pushing their capabilities, working closely with Rivera to integrate them into the sonar system. The two of them build a rhythm, exchanging theories, testing new filters, and chasing patterns through dense clouds of acoustic data. Late one night, as they're both hunched over the latest sonar readouts, Elise leans forward, narrowing her eyes at a faint, recurring blip hidden in the noise. There, she says quietly, pointing to the almost imperceptible pattern. That's not ambient sound, that's a pulse, a communication signal. Rivera adjusts the filters, isolating the frequency. He listens for a moment, then nods slowly. You're right, it's structured, weak, but intentional. Elise's heart races. The drones are talking to each other. They're coordinating. This discovery marks a turning point. What had once seemed like scattered individual movements now reveal themselves as part of a larger, synchronized system. By tracking these low-frequency pulses, Elise and Rivera begin to map the entire network, a lattice of unmanned underwater vehicles, UUVs, deployed with strategic precision across crucial sectors of the Pacific Ocean. As the picture sharpens, the scale becomes clear. Dozens, possibly hundreds of drones form a hidden grid, each one covering a specific zone operating with eerie efficiency. The implications are staggering. One evening, as Elise sits bleary-eyed over her station, Kim enters the lab with a steaming mug of coffee. "How are you adjusting?" she asks gently, settling into the chair beside her. Elise accepts the cup gratefully, savoring the warmth. "Better than I thought I would, but sometimes I still wake up disoriented, like I'm back on the carrier." "It passes," Kim assures her with a small, understanding smile. "Took me about 3 months before this place felt normal." Elise raises an eyebrow. "Home is a strong word for a steel tube under the ocean." Kim chuckles. "It's not about the vessel, it's the mission. Everyone here was chosen for a reason, because we noticed something others didn't, or brought skills most people don't have. It's rare the kind of focus we have here. No distractions, just clarity." Elise nods slowly. "Back on the Nimitz, half my job was paperwork, meetings, and navigating politics. Here, it's just the work." "Exactly," Kim says, standing. "No noise, no red tape, just the task at hand." After Kim leaves, Elise sits a little straighter, feeling a flicker of something she hadn't expected. Peace, Vamas. In the silence of the Phantom, there is freedom. Freedom from bureaucracy, from meaningless demands, from anything that doesn't directly serve the mission. 4 weeks into the patrol, they get the breakthrough they've been waiting for. The Phantom has been tailing a Chinese shrimp, officially labeled as an oceanographic research vessel, the Haiyang D9, for 3 days. It keeps a respectable distance, observing passively, recording everything. Then, one alert cuts through the quiet. "Captain to CIC," Rivera's voice crackles over the intercom. "Possible drone deployment in progress." Elise hurries to the Combat Information Center, arriving seconds after Commander Harlow. On the main screen, the sonar feed displays an unmistakable pattern. Rivera points to it. Classic deployment signature. Elise listens through her headset, heart pounding. "Confirmed, that's a launch sequence. I'm counting at least 3 units. Track them, Harlow orders, but keep our distance. We observe only. For the next 12 hours, the crew watches as the newly launched drones descend to depth and begin scanning the ocean floor in a meticulous grid. Their path is no coincidence. It mirrors the layout of the undersea data cables linking Guam to the U.S. mainland. This isn't science, Park mutters grimly, eyes on the data stream. They're surveying our comms infrastructure. And now we have proof, Harlow says. He turns to Dr. Weiss. Prepare a full analysis for STRATCOM. Leave nothing out. For 2 more days, they continue monitoring, collecting irrefutable evidence. Elise barely leaves the lab, refining detection protocols, tracking the subtle chatter between drones, watching as they converge and spread in mechanical precision. By the 3rd day, her expression hardens. They're not just mapping, she reports. They're dropping objects, every few kilometers at regular intervals. Sensors, Park suggests. Or worse, Harlow replies. Devices that could tap the cables. Or cut them. In a war scenario, the unspoken conclusion hangs in the air, heavy and chilling. These aren't tools for exploration. They're weapons in waiting, silently poised to cripple communication, to blind and isolate the U.S. at a moment's notice. The strategy is brilliant and terrifying. And now the Phantom has caught it in motion. The evidence had been gathered, analyzed, and compiled, enough to justify the next step. Command wasted no time. New orders came in, and Harlow didn't hesitate. We're greenlit for Phase 3, he informed the senior staff, his voice even but heavy with implication. This wasn't a drill. This was selective neutralization, removing a single drone unit without tipping off the others, or more crucially, the mothership. Precision was non-negotiable. Absolute stealth was the price of success. The Phantom's crew threw themselves into preparation. Tactical simulations ran day and night. Every variable was reviewed, every contingency considered. Eventually, they chose their mark. A lone drone drifting slightly outside the formation, operating independently. An outlier, a vulnerability. Beneath the surface, concealed in the shadowy blue depths, the Phantom glided like a specter. Elise's hands hovered over the controls, her ears tuned to the ocean's whispers. Her acoustic readings painted the battlefield in sound. The submarine's position was adjusted millimeter by millimeter under her guidance, its approach painstakingly slow and silent. From the hull, specialized mechanical limbs unfolded, the capture mechanism. A product of years of covert development, it was designed for one task and one task only, seize without a trace. Contact in 30 seconds, Rivera announced, eyes locked on his sonar display. No one responded, none needed to. Every station moved in eerie coordination. All stations, silent running, Harlow ordered. Every footfall ceased, every breath seemed quieter. The control room was dense with focus, with tension so thick it bordered on physical weight. Elise's gaze darted over her instruments. Any slight variation in the acoustic profile would be a warning that the drone sensed them. But the data held steady. 10 seconds, Rivera began the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The arms deployed. The drone was engulfed in an electromagnetic field tailored to scramble its internal sensors, severing its ability to alert others. In the blink of an eye, the recovery team was already moving. They transported the unit to a reinforced chamber lined with signal-dampening material, every moment choreographed. Target secured, Park confirmed. No alert signals detected. The air shifted in the control room. Shoulders dropped. Someone exhaled audibly. For a moment, silence carried the weight of triumph. Well done, Harlow said quietly, offering no theatrics. Let's see what we've caught. What they recovered stunned them all. The drone wasn't just advanced. It redefined what they believed their adversaries were capable of. It was a machine of chilling sophistication. Surveillance optics capable of long-range targeting, signal siphoning devices designed to hijack data from undersea cables, technologies their analysts hadn't even fully theorized. Dr. Weiss and her team worked without pause, pushing themselves past exhaustion. After 48 relentless hours, she emerged from the lab, her expression grim. This confirms our worst fears, she said. Surveillance tools, yes, but also active interception. hardware designed to exploit and manipulate infrastructure in real time. This isn't passive observation, it's strategic infiltration. Harlow's jaw clenched. Compile everything. Prepare a secure transmission for command. Later that night, Elise sat alone in the mess hall. The room was dim and quiet, the kind of silence that invites reflection. Her hands curled around a cup of cooling tea, untouched. The weight of what they'd uncovered pressed on her chest. The door opened, and Captain Harlow stepped inside, his posture stiff with fatigue, but his eyes alert. He poured himself a mug of coffee before walking over and sitting beside her. "You should be asleep, Commander," he said, the edge of weariness softening his voice. "You've more than earned it." "I will," she murmured, just trying to make sense of it all. She stared into her cup, then added, "6 weeks ago, I was running routine acoustic surveys on the Nimitz. Now I'm cataloging a threat that most of the Navy doesn't even know exists." "That's the job," Harlow said simply. "Critical missions no one will ever read about. No front-page coverage. No parades." "What happens now?" "Now the quiet part begins. Diplomacy, mostly. Classified briefings, internal memos, formal objections sent through secure channels. We won't name names, we won't reveal what we're capable of, but the message will be heard." "And the Phantom?" "The Phantom keeps working. There are always threats hidden beneath the surface. Adversaries convinced their technology is invisible, and there are always people like us. People who disappear to find them," Elise finished, her voice quiet, resolute. Harlow nodded. "Not everyone's built for this. The isolation, the secrecy, it changes people. You start to understand that some of the most important victories, they'll never be celebrated." As if summoned by his words, the communications officer appeared at the mess hall entrance. "Captain, priority message from command." Harlow stood without hesitation. "Excuse me," he said, and left. Elise sat motionless for a moment, absorbing everything. She thought about her colleagues back on the Nimitz, how they must have speculated about her sudden departure, probably assuming she'd been reassigned due to some disciplinary incident. She pictured her family, receiving the sanitized, infrequent letters from her supposed post in Hawaii, carefully redacted to say nothing of her real work. Despite all that, despite the isolation and disconnection, a sense of quiet purpose rooted deeper within her. She was part of something essential, something invisible but critical, something that didn't fit into the normal rhythms of naval life, but was, somehow, more real because of it. And so the Phantom continued on, gliding beneath the surface in pursuit of the unseen. 5 months into her covert deployment, Elise had fully adapted to the Phantom's unorthodox rhythms, a world governed not by ceremony or public acclaim, but by silence, precision, and purpose, hidden beneath layers of secrecy. Her acoustic surveillance array had picked up 3 more drone communication networks scattered across the Pacific. Each new find demanded exhaustive documentation and, when necessary, carefully executed takedowns. Together, the growing pile of evidence pointed clearly to a secretive and unauthorized military program. A case was building, one too comprehensive to be ignored. In a rare stretch of calm, Elise stood alone in the submarine's compact observation chamber, peering out through the thick, reinforced glass. The outside world was a wall of black, a crushing void of salt and pressure that never changed. The vast quiet of the deep ocean seemed to match the secrecy of their mission. Captain Harlow approached without a sound. His faint reflection appeared beside hers on the window. "Command is pleased with our progress," he said, his voice low and even. "What we've uncovered has already triggered changes, policy shifts at the top." Elise didn't turn to look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on the black water. "But the public will never know," she said softly. "No," Harlow agreed, "they won't. That's the paradox of this job. The more successful we are, the less anyone hears about it." "I'm not worried about recognition," she said after a pause. Her voice was steady, but there was something searching underneath. "But I do wonder what comes next. My 6 months are almost up." Harlow nodded as if he'd been waiting for that moment. "Actually, that's what I came to talk to you about. Command has cleared me to offer you something more permanent, a position as executive officer aboard the Phantom. Elise turned away from the viewport for the first time, startled. XO, but what about Commander Park? He's leaving next month. They've tapped him to lead the next vessel in the Phantom Line. The offer hit her with conflicting weight. On one side, the honor of a major promotion. On the other, the gravity of deeper entanglement in this life that existed outside normal time, beyond borders and records. This wasn't just a whine, it was a commitment to isolation, to vanishing more completely into the shadows. I'd need time to think about it, she said. Of course, Harlow replied. Take the week. This isn't a decision to make quickly. He started to turn but paused. One more thing. If you accept, you'll be reconnected, carefully with your old life. We'd craft a narrative that explains your absence and legitimizes your record. You'd have access to a version of your past again, even if filtered. And if I don't, you return to the surface Navy. You'll carry a classified commendation and a fabricated assignment history. Something innocuous, like a special project in Hawaii. Your career continues, but your time here is sealed. You'll never be allowed to mention it. Elise gave a small nod. She understood. Either way, a part of her life would be quietly erased or rewritten. There was no version of this path that led back to full transparency. When do you need my decision? By the end of the week, Harlow said. This isn't something to rush. With that, he left her alone again in the quiet chamber. Elise turned back toward the dark glass. The ocean outside remained unchanged, a cold, invisible frontier filled with threats no one on the surface would ever see, defended by people no one would ever know. No matter what choice she made, one truth was clear. She had crossed a line. Her perspective was different now, irreversibly so. Some wars were waged in the open, with visible enemies and salutes and medals. But others were fought in silence, in the spaces between headlines and history books. The victories there left no trace but the absence of disaster. The measure of success was whether the world above kept turning, unaware of how close it had come to catastrophe. And so the Phantom sailed on, unseen, unheard, its mission etched only in the hearts of those who had given themselves to the depths.